Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome into the channel today. I'm really happy you've decided to spend some more time with me today. It does really mean a lot that, a good amount of people are starting to watch the videos on the channel, and it does make me feel pretty good to see some of the positive feedback I've been getting. So thank you so much for that. With that being said, Stage 2 of the 2021 Call of Duty League season is upon us, with the Toronto home series kicking off this week. There's 10 matches to cover, so why don't we just dive right in and get to it? Now, before we get into any individual match previews, which I promise we're going to get into here in a second, I did just want to put my pre-Stage 2 tier list up on the screen so you all can get a kind of a general sense of how I feel about these teams stacking up right now. Obviously, with the new meta coming in, it might change things a little bit, although it's obviously still not clear how much different it will actually be. From what I've seen from some scrims that I've been watching when OpTic streams or from the Challengers Elite stuff, it doesn't look too much different. You're seeing 2 QBZs on some maps, 1 Krig, 1 QBZ on another map, so we'll see how it actually plays out throughout Stage 2, and obviously there's some new maps in the rotation, so something to be excited for. Express S&D obviously taking over for Garrison S&D. Thank God, Garrison S&D, in my opinion, is unwatchable. Now the next thing we need to do is get rid of Checkmate S&D, and I think that that rotation of maps will be in a very good place. And then Apocalypse Hardpoint is coming in for Crossroads Hardpoint, which to me I was a little sad about. I like the amount of engagements on Crossroads Hardpoint, although I do know that pros didn't like it too much because of like the chaos of the spawns inconsistencies and just kind of where all the hills were on the map. So a little sad to see that one go, but I do understand why it had to be that way. So, with all that being said, why don't we get into the matches for the week, starting off with Thursday? All right, so we've got the matches on the screen here, as you can see, starting with the Thursday matches, which we're going to go over now. Starting off with FaZe versus Subliners. I actually am really excited that they picked a pretty fun matchup to start off the week. Although I do see FaZe as pretty clearly the best team in the game right now, Subliners are definitely in the top 5 for me, as you saw from my tier list earlier. I think that even if this is a 3-1 in FaZe's favor, I think that all of the maps will be close. Subliners are a very, very feisty team, and I'm sure you're going to be seeing a lot of snake emojis in the chat of this one. I try and stay away from the YouTube chat. It is a little toxic, but with Celium and Diamond Con going at it, I'm sure you will see plenty of snakes in the chat. I'm going to go FaZe 3-1 here. Super excited to see this match. Really glad, like I said, that they're kicking it off with such a electric matchup, in all honesty. Next up, kind of on the opposite spectrum here, is Mutineers versus Surge. I think this is going to be a 3-0 in Mutineers' favor for a couple of reasons. I think that we really saw things trending in the right direction for Mutineers towards the end of Stage 1, especially in the Major. I think that if Sky starts to show up a little bit more consistently for Mutineers, they're sitting in a very nice place, especially as Neptune continues to develop. Surge, on the other hand, are not in a good place right now, and they got kind of the raw end of the deal by getting placed in what I consider to be a very stacked Group B. I'm sure a lot of you watching at home agree with me in that sense. The fact that they didn't address their obvious problems with the SMG line heading into Stage 2 would kind of worry me if I'm a fan. I just don't see any way for them to keep up with this group that they're in. Like I said, I think this is a very stacked group, and I think this is going to be a 3-0 fashion for Mutineers here, and I think it's going to be the start of a very ugly Stage 2 for Surge. Now we're moving on to Friday's matches, which features the LA Thieves versus the Toronto Ultra, who are protecting their home online turf here in the online home series. So it's interesting because I think Ultra kind of got the raw end of the deal last bracket, where they were in Group B. And on the opposite hand, I've talked about this a couple times before, where I think LA Thieves kind of built their early season hype based off of beating bad teams or teams that were still trying to figure themselves out a little bit. And where we saw Thieves kind of, coming apart at the seams in the Major, it did feel like Ultra did seem to sort of turn things around a little bit, although there is still a lot of things to be kind of worried about with this team in terms of inconsistency. I think that Thieves has to deal with all this outside noise with the rumors of some sort of roster moves being on the horizon. So kind of seeing how they navigate that will be interesting. I'm very excited to see how Insight comes in for Toronto. I think this will be a close match because I do think these are two higher end teams. But I do think that Toronto defends the home turf here, takes this one 3-2. I wouldn't be shocked if this went either way, to be honest. But with what LA Thieves are dealing with, and with how Toronto kind of brought Insight on, which seems like a move that they wanted to make from the beginning of the season, I think these are two teams that are in mentally different spots, and I think that that kind of helps Toronto in this series. Which brings us to Legion at Rokkr, which I think is also a very interesting matchup because like Thieves and Ultra, I think these are two pretty evenly matched teams. Minnesota obviously just cannot win hard points. I talked about it in my tier list video previously. And Legion is just an all-around solid team. If they can get more out of Fire throughout Stage 2, I think they're going to be in a lot better of a place. I really liked how Classic and Aqua played, Scraps obviously being their best player throughout Stage 1. But if Aqua and Classic keep playing as well as they did in Stage 1 and they get a little bit more out of Fire, I think this is a very underrated Paris team. And then for Minnesota, if Priesta can get it back together, I was calling him a top 5-ish caliber player heading into the year. Seems like he's still kind of adjusting to that full-time sub role. We'll see how the meta change will affect this team, if at all. And if they can actually start winning some hard points, I think that they'll be in a much better situation with a much higher ceiling as the year heads on. So I'm going to take Rokkr 3-2 here as well. I think their S&D is the difference in this one. But, you know, they just got to start winning hard points. Again, like I said with Thieves, Ultra, wouldn't be shocked if this one went anyway. Moving on to the Saturday matches here, we're starting off at noon with OpTic versus Legion. We just talked about Legion a little bit, but I do want to focus on OpTic here since this is the only match they have in this Toronto home series. I'm going to go 3-1 OpTic here, and there's a couple reasons for that. I know I just spent a lot of time gassing up Paris a little bit, but I expect them to bounce back after what was a very embarrassing loss to Subliners in the Stage 1 major. I think Envoy was really starting to find his footing up until they ran into Subliners there in the losers bracket. And then Paris does tend to give teams close matches, so I wouldn't be surprised, like I said with FaZe Subliners on Thursday matches, if this one is a close 3-1 where each map is competitive, but I really do expect OpTic to bounce back. I'm sure they're very upset with how things ended in Stage 1, so expect them to bounce back strong here. Continue to see Envoy kind of develop, and I was calling Envoy a top 3 player heading into the year. If he can hit that ceiling, again, I think this team is going to be scary moving forward. Which brings us again to Florida versus Rokkr. I think this match this week has a lot of really good matchups, and I think this is one of them. In my opinion, this is probably one of the more intriguing matchups of the week. Can Florida clean up their small mistakes? It's going to be very important that they do that against a team like Rokkr, who's so methodical, kind of just knows what they're doing on the map. And then for Rokkr, this is a great test because it's sort of, can they keep up with teams with slaying power, which for all things considered, that's what Florida has. So kind of a battle of two different ideologies and team builds coming to a head here, with Florida with the slaying power but not being very consistent in terms of the fundamentals, and then Rokkr being so consistently fundamentally sound and technical in how they approach the game, but just not being able to keep up in the slaying department. So very, very excited to see how this one plays out. I'm going to go 3-2 here with the Mutineers taking it home. I think that if anybody on Florida shows up for either of the S&Ds in this matchup to help Awakening, then I think they'll be in a good spot. And I just think that they have a little bit too much slaying power for Rokkr to keep up with it in the hard points and maybe even in control. So 3-2 here for Florida, but excited to see this one, as you can probably tell from what I've been saying, which kind of makes me a little disappointed that they made the marquee match for Saturday, Dallas versus Surge, because like I said, this just feels like another 3-0 against Surge, in my opinion. Empire could use this kind of, I hate to say this, but like an easy match. There is no easy matches this year with how stacked the competition is, but I mean, this is about as close as it gets to an easy matchup for Empire. We've already seen them 3-0 Surge a couple of times throughout Stage 1, so they could use this as a way to get Illy some confidence, as he was kind of in a slump throughout Stage 1. I think Hugh and Shotzi might force Looney into retirement after this one. I just don't see this going very well for Surge in any matter. Not really much more to say about this one. 3-0 Dallas seems pretty easy to pick here. And finally, the Sunday matches closing out things for the week in the Toronto home series. Starting off with LAG versus the Royal Ravens. London is in what I would consider some serious turmoil. Now they've obviously swapped Parasite with Paul X. Not sure if Paul X will fit with Shawnee already there. It feels like two main AR players in a meta that is kind of shifting to favor a little bit more of that fast-paced AR play with the QBZ now kind of in the fold. Dylan just flat out stinks. I'm sorry to say it. I'm just not seeing anything from him this year. And LAG being one of the most technically sound teams in the game, just kind of always getting their trades, always knowing what to be and where to be on the map. Feels like with a team as influx as Ravens are, it won't be easy. Like I said, there's no easy matches. And I almost never predict 3-0s because of how balanced the league is at this point. So I'm going to take 3-1 LAG here. I think LAG is still being slept on by a lot of people. I think that people are seriously underrating how important consistency and just like technical gameplay is in this COD specifically. So a lot of people know I am a closeted LAG fan. They're not my favorite team, but I definitely do love rooting for Apathy and the gang. So 3-1 LAG here feels fair. FaZe versus Ultra, another kind of matchup that I'm excited to watch. I think that Ultra is super talented. One of the few teams in terms of just like flat out talent that I think can keep up with FaZe, but I just don't think like being inconsistent against most teams is not great. Being inconsistent against a team as good as FaZe, as consistent as FaZe, like the fact that FaZe might be not only the most talented team, but also the most consistent team across all three game modes is scary. Like I said, I don't like picking 3-0s in a lot of cases. I'm going to pick 3-1 here, but would not be surprised if FaZe kind of breeze through this one, keeping the undefeated streak going for the season. 3-1 here seems like a logical kind of choice here for me. And then finally, the marquee matchup of the weekend, Thieves versus Subliners. Subliners feel like the more cohesive team here in this matchup. They kind of know what they're doing. And they were peaking at the right time at the end. Oh, excuse me. They were peaking at the right time at the end of Stage 1. Whereas, like I mentioned earlier with Thieves, it kind of felt like they were coming apart at the seams at the end of Stage 1. So Clay lives for big time, prime time matches like this. I'm sure he's going to get the guys ready to perform. Hopefully LA Thieves can keep it close. I'm going to go with 3-2 here, but I do think that just overall New York has a little bit more talent. I think Clay is playing probably the best COD he's played in a couple of years. And I'm just not very confident in the Thieves being able to respond to the sort of heat that I think Subliners are going to bring to this matchup. So I'm going to go 3-2 here as well. But interested to see what you guys think about my predictions in the comment section below. I'm going to leave them on the screen here while I just kind of ramble on for you to look at one last time. And yeah, that's what I think for the matches this week. All right, and so that's going to do it for my Toronto home series predictions. If you did enjoy the video, I would appreciate it if you left a like, and if you are excited about more CDL content coming in the future, please consider subscribing. We're almost at 20 subscribers now, so seeing the channel grow is always a great thing. I'm planning on being back next week with another video to kind of recap everything that happens over the weekend, so be looking forward to that if you are subscribed. And yeah, so I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Peace out, everybody.